Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to say could change the direction of your life forever. There is a deadline in the spirit, and many of you are about to miss it. Yes, you heard that right. Not a deadline written on your calendar, not something your boss told you, but something heaven is watching. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the outside, but in the spiritual realm, they carry unusual weight. These are not just days that pass by like any other. They are appointed moments, divine checkpoints, where heaven watches closely to see how you will respond. Many people live their lives thinking everything is random, that time is just moving forward without meaning. But in reality, there is a rhythm in the spirit, a divine timing that God operates within. And when that timing comes, your response matters more than you realize. Right now, you may feel like it's just another season, another month, another deadline like any other. But deep inside, there's a quiet voice telling you that something is different. That voice is not your imagination. It's the Spirit of God trying to get your attention. Because there are seasons where God draws a line and says, now is the time. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. The danger is that many people miss these moments because they are distracted. They are busy with life, scrolling endlessly, chasing temporary things, delaying what truly matters. They keep saying, I'll get serious later, I'll pray more next week, I'll change when I feel ready. But spiritual opportunities don't wait for your convenience. When God sets a moment, it doesn't adjust itself to your comfort. It requires your awareness and your response. Think about it. How many times have you felt a strong urge to pray, to change something in your life, to let go of a habit, to step into a calling, and you ignored it? That wasn't random. That was a divine prompting. And every time you delay, you risk missing a window that may not come back in the same way again. God is merciful, yes. God is patient, yes. But that doesn't mean timing doesn't matter. Even in the Bible, there were people who missed their moment. Opportunities came, doors opened, but because they hesitated or doubted, they stayed in the same place while others moved forward into their destiny. The difference was not ability, it was response. Right now, you are being given a moment, a chance to realign your life, to refocus your priorities, to reconnect with God in a deeper way. This is not about fear, it's about awareness. It's about recognizing that your life is not sluchiny, your timing is not accidental, and your actions today are shaping what tomorrow will look like. There is something powerful about responding in the moment God calls you. When you act immediately, you step into alignment with His will. And when you are aligned with God, things begin to shift. Doors start opening in ways you didn't expect. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength replaces weakness. Peace replaces anxiety. Not because your situation instantly changes, but because you have positioned yourself under God's timing and authority. But if you ignore it, if you treat this moment like it's nothing special, life may continue as usual. But you will feel it inside. A sense of delay, a sense of something missing. Not because God left you, but because you stepped out of sync with His timing. This is why awareness is everything. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to recognize the moment and respond. Even a small step of obedience can shift the entire direction of your life. So right now, instead of asking, is this really important? Ask yourself, what is God asking me to do in this moment? And whatever that answer is, don't delay it. Act on it. Because what looks like an ordinary day to you may be a defining moment in the eyes of heaven. There is a dangerous lie that many believers unknowingly accept, and it sounds very harmless on the surface. It says, I will obey God, just not right now. It doesn't sound like rebellion. It doesn't feel like disobedience. In fact, it feels reasonable, even responsible. You tell yourself you just need more time, more clarity, more strength. But in the spiritual realm, delay carries a weight that most people don't understand. When God speaks, He speaks with intention. His instructions are not casual suggestions. They are invitations into alignment, into blessing, into purpose. And those instructions are often tied to timing. So when you delay your response, you're not just postponing an action. You are stepping out of divine timing. Many people think disobedience is only when you say no to God, but often it's when you say later. That quiet postponement slowly creates distance between you and what God is trying to do in your life. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but over time, it becomes a pattern. You feel the urge to pray, you delay it. You feel convicted to let go of something, you ignore it. You feel called to start something, you hesitate, and little by little, your sensitivity to God's voice begins to fade. The truth is, partial obedience is not obedience. Delayed obedience is not obedience. Because obedience is not just about what you do, it's about when you do it. Timing matters to God. When He tells you to move, it's because there is something already prepared ahead of that step. But if you wait too long, you may find yourself standing in the same place while the opportunity passes by. Think about how many breakthroughs are not blocked by the devil, but by delay. Not because God said no, but because you said not yet. And in that not yet, you unknowingly create resistance to the very thing you've been praying for. There are people who have been praying for change, asking God for direction, seeking open doors. But at the same time, they are holding on to instructions God already gave them weeks or months ago. It's like asking for the next step while refusing to take the current one. God doesn't operate that way. He responds to obedience. He releases more when you act on what you already know. Delay also opens the door to doubt. When you hesitate, your mind starts to question what your spirit already knew was true. You begin to overthink, to analyze, to second guess. What once felt clear becomes confusing. What once felt urgent becomes optional. And suddenly what God placed in your heart starts to lose its fire. But when you act immediately, something powerful happens. You silence doubt before it grows. You strengthen your faith. You show God that you trust Him, not just in words, but in action. And that kind of faith moves heaven. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's not asking you to have everything figured out. He is asking for a willing heart that responds without hesitation. Even if the step feels small, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it doesn't fully make sense, obedience in the moment carries more power than perfection later. Right now, there are things in your life that you already know God has been speaking about. You don't need more confirmation. You don't need another sign. What you need is to act, because every delay is a decision, every later is a choice, and over time, those choices shape your spiritual direction. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, understand this: when God speaks, that is the perfect moment. And the faster you respond, the closer you move toward everything He has prepared for you. Right now, whether you realize it or not, you are standing at a turning point. Life may look normal on the surface. You wake up, go through your routine, handle your responsibilities, but deep within, something is shifting. There is a quiet tension, a sense that your decisions in this season carry more weight than usual. That's because you are at a spiritual crossroad, a place where two very different paths are forming in front of you. One path leads toward growth, breakthrough, and alignment with God's purpose for your life. The other leads toward delay, frustration, and regret. And what's important to understand is this: these paths are not determined by big dramatic moments. They are shaped by small, daily decisions, choices that seem insignificant at first, but over time define your direction. Many people think crossroads come with clear signs, loud warnings, or undeniable events. But often they come quietly. They come in the form of a decision to pray or not to pray, to obey or to ignore, to step forward in faith or to stay in comfort. And because these choices feel small, they are easy to overlook. But in the spiritual realm, they are anything but small. Every time you choose obedience, you take a step toward breakthrough. Every time you choose delay, you drift closer to regret. The path to breakthrough is not always easy. It requires faith when things are uncertain. It requires discipline when you don't feel motivated. It requires letting go of things that feel comfortable but are holding you back. This path will stretch you, challenge you, and sometimes even make you uncomfortable, but it will also grow you. It will strengthen you. It will lead you into a life that reflects God's promises. On the other hand, the path to regret is much easier in the moment. It's the path of least resistance. It's choosing comfort over calling, distraction over discipline, fear over faith. It feels safe, familiar, and convenient, but over time it leads to something heavy, a sense that you could have done more, that you should have acted sooner, that you missed something important. Regret doesn't usually come from failure. It comes from hesitation, from the moments you knew what to do, but didn't do it. What makes this crossroads so powerful is that no one else can choose for you. Not your family, not your friends, not even your pastor. This is personal. This is between you and God. He may guide you, prompt you, and speak to your heart, but the decision is yours. And the truth is, you are already choosing, even now. If you keep doing what you've always done, you are choosing the path you are already on. If you keep delaying what you know you should do, you are choosing the direction of delay. But if you decide, even in this moment, to shift, to pray more, to obey faster, to trust deeper, you begin to step onto a different path, a path where things begin to change. It may not happen overnight, but direction determines destination. When you align your direction with God, your destination will eventually reflect it. You don't need to have the entire journey figured out. You don't need to see every step ahead. You just need to choose the right path today. One decision, one act of obedience, one step of faith. Because at a crossroad, it's not about speed, it's about direction. And years from now, you will look back at this season and realize that it was not just another time in your life. It was a defining moment. A moment where you either stepped into what God had for you or stayed where you were. So, the question is simple, but powerful. Which path are you choosing today? Faith without action is like a lamp without oil. It looks promising, but it cannot fulfill its purpose. Many believers make the mistake of thinking that prayer, hope, or belief alone is enough to move the hand of God in their lives. They say, I have faith, I trust God, but then their lives remain unchanged, because faith is not simply a mental agreement, it is a force that requires action. When God calls, He calls for movement, for obedience, for steps that demonstrate trust in Him. Faith becomes alive only when it is paired with immediate action. Waiting for perfect circumstances, ideal timing, or complete understanding is often a way of avoiding true commitment. The Bible shows us countless examples of people who acted in faith despite uncertainty. Abraham left his familiar homeland without knowing the full plan. Noah built an ark when no flood had yet appeared. David faced Goliath armed only with a sling and his trust in God. Each of these actions was more than belief. They were expressions of faith in motion, and in each case, their action aligned them with God's promises. Many Christians fail to experience the fullness of God's power because they delay. They pray, they hope, they plan, but they never move. And in doing so, they miss the moment when God's favor and breakthrough would have intersected with their lives. Action activates blessing. Obedience opens doors. Movement in faith turns potential into reality. Without it, faith remains dormant, like a seed that never touches soil. The promise exists, but it never manifests. Faith also requires courage, because action often demands stepping into discomfort. God rarely asks for action that is convenient or easy. He asks for steps that stretch us, that test our resolve, that confront fear and doubt. But it is precisely in these moments that faith grows strongest. Every step you take in obedience, even when you are uncertain, builds spiritual muscle and strengthens your trust in God. You begin to understand that God is faithful, not because you always see the outcome, but because He always fulfills His word. Immediate action also protects your faith from erosion. Doubt and fear often creep in when we hesitate. The longer we wait, the more reasons we find not to act. We convince ourselves that timing isn't right, that circumstances need to change, or that we are not ready. But God's timing is perfect. He does not wait for our comfort, He waits for our obedience. By acting in faith now, we demonstrate trust in His timing and align ourselves with His plan. Furthermore, action demonstrates our willingness to cooperate with God. Faith is not a passive state, it is a partnership. God works in and through those who move. Prayers are answered when they are backed by effort. Decisions are honored when they are followed by steps of obedience. And doors open when we walk toward them. The spiritual world responds not only to belief, but to action. Action rooted in trust, guided by God, and executed with commitment. The key is not to wait until circumstances are perfect or until fear has disappeared. The key is to act on what God has already shown you. Even small steps taken consistently compound into breakthroughs. Every time you act in faith, you prove that your trust in God is real. You position yourself for blessings that were impossible to access while you remained passive, and you inspire others around you to live in faith as well. So, understand this clearly. Faith without action is incomplete. Belief without movement is ineffective. God is calling you to act, to step, to move even when you do not see the full path. Obedience activates faith. Faith in motion changes lives, and the sooner you respond, the sooner you will experience the reality of God's power and the miracles He has prepared for you. Your breakthrough is waiting, but it begins with action. Many people pray, fast, and seek God for blessings, yet they feel stuck, frustrated, or overlooked. They wonder why, despite their efforts, breakthrough seems delayed. The truth is, God often places blessings, healing, favor, and provision within reach, but they remain just out of grasp because they are waiting on one thing: your surrender. Blessings are not always blocked by lack of faith, resources, or opportunity. They are blocked by hesitation, pride, or partial obedience. God desires complete alignment with His will, and it is only when you surrender fully that the fullness of His favor can flow into your life. Surrender is more than just saying, "God, I trust you." It is a daily, intentional choice to let go of control, to release fear, and to obey, even when it challenges your comfort zone. Many believers hold tightly to their plans, habits, or desires while praying for God to intervene. This divided heart prevents the manifestation of miracles. The moment you release what you think you need and fully trust God's plan, His supernatural provision begins to move in your favor. Blessings often come in ways you do not expect, and they may require action on your part. God's favor is not passive. It works in conjunction with your obedience. You may have prayed for financial breakthrough, healing, or opportunity. Yet if you remain hesitant to follow His instructions, whether that means forgiving someone, stepping into a calling, or letting go of a destructive habit, your breakthrough will remain delayed. Surrender is the key that unlocks the door to all that God has prepared for you. Another aspect of surrender is humility. Pride can subtly block favor. When we insist on doing things our way, or when we demand control over outcomes, we unknowingly resist the flow of God's power. True surrender requires acknowledging that God knows better than we do. It is the willingness to step aside, to yield your understanding, and to trust that His plan is perfect. The moment you release self-reliance and place full confidence in God's wisdom, favor begins to shift. Opportunities open, relationships heal, and resources align in ways that defy human logic. Faith and action are necessary, but without surrender, they can be limited. Many believers act in faith, but hold back emotionally or spiritually, afraid to give everything over to God. Surrender completes the cycle. It turns obedience into power, action into results, and belief into manifestation. When you surrender, you are telling God, "I am ready for your best. I am ready for your plan. I am ready for your timing." This declaration aligns you with His purpose and removes the blockages that delay blessings. Surrender also cultivates peace and confidence. When you give your worries, fears, and expectations fully to God, you no longer carry the weight of trying to control outcomes. That peace creates a spiritual atmosphere in which God's favor can operate unhindered. You begin to notice doors opening, coincidences aligning, and opportunities presenting themselves that you could not have orchestrated on your own. This is not luck, it is the result of aligning with God through full surrender. Lastly, surrender demonstrates your trust. God honors those who fully place their lives in His hands. The Bible repeatedly shows that when individuals surrender completely, God responds with abundance, healing, and divine intervention. Your breakthrough may not have arrived yet, not because God is unwilling, but because He is waiting for your heart to be fully surrendered. Once that surrender happens, His favor flows freely, often exceeding what you imagined. In essence, your blessings, healing, and favor are waiting, but they are contingent on your surrender. Obedience, humility, and complete trust are the keys that unlock what God has already prepared. When you release hesitation, pride, and fear, you create space for God to move powerfully in your life. Surrender is not the end of action. It is the beginning of a new, aligned, and miraculous journey where God's favor becomes evident and your breakthrough becomes undeniable. Your next season starts the moment you surrender completely.